Hello, everybody, and welcome to Health Tips for Life. So excited to be with you on this Monday. Today, we're going to be having a part two of our conversation about how to deal with lack of focus. And Dr. Stewart is here that is going to be sharing some really tips, strategies, and based on his over 40 years of experience dealing with this. Before I'll bring him in, I wanted to let you know that the channel is growing, so you will be surprised. And I'm gonna maybe making some few changes because there's a lot of some of you think about this channel is only about nutrition, food, spices, and all that. Yeah, to a degree. But what we're gonna be dealing with this in this channel moving forward, this is about the well-being of a human being, you and I. And what is at the heart of it? It's our brain or nervous system. And this is why Dr. Stewart was willing to really carve out this time for us here every Monday. And we are very, very grateful. So let's bring in Dr. Stewart. Hello, Doc.
Hello, Dr. O.
How are you?
I'm doing very well. As you know, this information and what we're up to is a labor of love for me. I've spent an entire career looking at how to be high performance in my own life and how to help others be high performance in their life, which means live life on their terms. And this is the happy part of part two. Part two is because we're going to talk about, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
We're going to be talking about what to do to make sure your life is headed that direction.
Indeed.
Last week we talked about everything was wrong. Now this week we get to talk about everything, what to do to make it right.
Well, the advantage to all this, Doc, is that you've spent decades and decades dealing with this. So you've seen the ins and outs of it on all types of people, all types of personalities. So you are someone who is in a position to really state the fact as you saw them based on the research you've conducted and based on the experience you've acquired over the decades. So let's get into this, as we said on our part two. Well, if you can just please remind our viewers about what is the whole issue of this lack of attention, or if somebody cannot concentrate.
Here's what this actually looks like, is a way of reviewing this. If you're distracted by anything, and I'm going to give an example of that, you can't focus on what's going on right in front of you. And what that means is you read the same paragraph 3 times and you finally get it the 3rd time, as opposed to getting it the first time. That is clearly you're distracted away from what's right in front of you or what's important to you. And it happens not only visually, but it happens, people hear only 1/3 of what other people are saying to them. And they can't follow instructions. They don't really understand what the conversation is about, because they can't pay attention to enough of it to get the full story.
But is that because they are unable to process the information? Or is it some biologically, naturally in the brain that, let's say, something is not working right?
Yes and yes.
Wow.
So, you know, what I did for 20 years was I dealt with brain chemistry. Now, I did other things too. But my primary focus was brain chemistry and getting the brain and the hormone system working right, and watch people come out of depression. They come out of focus issues. They come out of Parkinson's. I mean, they came out of all kinds of things because we got the chemistry right. And so I know that that's an essential part of it. And we did it all with naturally occurring proteins. It was targeted proteins. We also know that you can be distracted by emotional upheaval in your life. There's nothing like having a spouse that you fight with all the time, or you work in a toxic work environment, and you're going to be distracted. Among other things, the toxic work environment is you don't want to be there. And oh God, I can't tell you how many people I dealt with who just hated their jobs. They hated the company. And when I went in to do consulting work in the company, I understood why. Toxic environments. And so these people they didn't focus well on the job because they simply didn't want to be there.
Well, I feel the same. That happened to me in Washington, D.C. But you know what I end up, which is true. You know what I end up doing? I removed myself.
That,
I left.
that is exactly what to do. Find
I
something
left
else to do.
Yeah, because it
How many?
became toxic environment, and I didn't want to be part of it. Well, great. So let's
Just in case you didn't know, David, life
yeah,
is short. You better be doing it. You better be living it on your terms
it is
because
indeed.
it is really
As
short.
I'm growing older, as I am convinced about that, I better
Yeah, me too.
live
Me
my
too.
life according to my terms. So
Yeah.
let's get into first of all understanding these focus issues and how you go about treating that. Can we use the term? Can we use the term treating, or we use the term managing? What is the most appropriate?
Well, there are two terms that are appropriate.
Mhm.
One is fixing the problem. And so you don't have to manage it anymore. It's fixed and it just goes away. Now, some situations you have to manage it, and that's on an all day, everyday basis, but at
Yeah.
least it's better than having the problem and have it ruin your life.
Okay. But
I'll
this
give you
one
an
would be
example.
yeah,
Go
but
ahead.
this kind of management will be different than if you're dealing with, let's say, chronic disease like dementia, like Parkinson's, like what some other diseases that or conditions that require management.
Oh, God, there's so many of them. Well, there's Alzheimer's, there's cognitive decline, there's dementia, there's
Mm,
Parkinson's, there's all kind of central nervous system disorders, and
wow.
you got to manage those. And like with depression,
Yeah.
one of the things is you have to manage it. But you can be symptom free, but you need to continue to manage it so that your brain chemistry is right.
Mm. So
And it
is
has
this the
nothing to do with
same condition we're
medications.
talking about here?
Say it again, please.
Is this the same approach we're dealing with when it comes down to lack of focus?
It is.
Okay.
So let me give you a quick example of this. There's a phenomenon called dyslexia, and I
Mhm.
haven't talked to anybody about this since Saturday,
Wow.
an adult. And here's what this is. Which hand is this? Which hand is this? Well, I know this is my right. Of course, on the screen, it looks different, and this
Mhm.
is my left. There's no doubt in my mind which hand is which. And this lady I was talking to said, I think I can't always tell. And she was 30 years old.
Wow.
And what I can surmise from that is she doesn't do much reading because you have to read from right to left. She doesn't do much math because you need to know up and down. And dyslexia stands directly in your way of doing that.
Mm.
And so the first kind of intervention the person can make is to understand, and this is a fix. This is one of the really happy things about this. You can actually fix this. I know because I did it hundreds of times. And my colleagues, who I'll be talking about a little later, do it routinely every day for adults. So, and here's the key to it. People who have this condition can't tell the difference between the back of their head and their shoulders. They miss their neck. You go, that sounds impossible. I could assure you it's not impossible. And virtually everyone that has this up-down problem or right-left problem, we need to take them through a 6-week training course of figuring out where their neck is. And it's easy, and people typically think it's fun. I'll give you a quick example. When little kids, what they do is they go cross lateral when they crawl.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't learn to do that, they can't figure out right from left. Or babies that lay flat on their tummy and don't lift their head up a lot, they can't find their neck because they haven't learned developmentally to do that.
Interesting.
Boy, is that a simple process, and dyslexia is gone. It's so optimistic and so hopeful. And It's almost no work at all.
Hmm.
I'll give you some sources as we go along as to where people can get this kind of information and take care of it themselves. I like to empower people to manage their own life.
Well, because they will be, I mean, this is where sometimes I see that argument as to what the doctor, the medical doctor in our terminology here, tells you, well, you need to do this and that. Well, aren't you the one in a better position to know what's good for you? Aren't you the one that you know what your lifestyle is? And this is what I have a hard time with people when they start to say to others, well, you need to do this and that. Well, wait a minute. The lifestyle is different for each one of us.
And if you take care of yourself, no one will take better care of you than you.
Indeed.
And you and I've talked about this a lot, about radical responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
We're really talking about taking ownership of your own life and being empowered with information to do what's really good for you, to get on with living life in your terms, as opposed to someone else is going to tell you. They're going to go to a doctor, and the doctor is going to give you a medication to fix it. It might give you a medication to mask the symptom, but chances are there is no medication to fix it. But this developmental thing for dyslexia fixes it for adults. I think I mentioned the 64-year-old woman. Did I mention her last week?
No.
64 years old, really wonderful lady. She was clearly bright. You could tell by the way she talked, but she could not read and she couldn't add and subtract. Can you imagine the abuse? I don't have to imagine. She told me the amount of abuse that she experienced in her life. We put her through this creeping and crawling and tonic neck reflex. In 5 weeks, she picked up a book and started to read.
Wow.
And she cried. And we cried with her. 64 years old, 5 weeks of treatment, and now she's reading and doing math, simple math easily. And it was all because she went through this learning process, because it wasn't her fault. She wasn't stupid.
Yeah.
She just didn't learn to crawl correctly when she was a little girl.
Interesting. Yeah. Now, was there any?
I can tell you 50 stories like that, and it's so powerful.
Yeah. And I was wondering, this is where I'm thinking in terms of, okay, if we are to think in these terms of the chemistry of the brain, would it be fair to say that we can link this to, for example, the type of nutrition we consume, the type of
can we ever? You know, I have a favorite research study that I'm not going to take a lot of time to talk about, but this has to do with what people have for breakfast and how they perform all morning. And what is a typical breakfast in America?
Bowl of cereal?
Could be it's actually not for adults. It's actually something like a bagel or a sweet roll and a cup of coffee. Now that no one's going to tell me that's high nutrition, because it isn't. What we've done is we've loaded up a person with caffeine, which is questionable, and then we put short chain carbohydrates in them. So they're going to feel better for about 20 to 30 minutes. And then the blood sugar is going to spike, because your body's not designed to do this short chain carbohydrate stuff. It's like eating sugar. And so you get a dump of cortisol, which is to manage that so you don't get cancer. And then you drop down into a real low productive range, and you can't focus as well.
Wow.
It's even worse if you just have coffee for breakfast.
Indeed.
Okay. Here's what we're really looking at. We're looking at meat. It could be bacon, it could be pork, it could be beef. We're looking at eggs. And if people would start putting vegetables with that, they've now got a powerful breakfast. My most typical breakfast is steamed green vegetables I got some real wonderful avocado sauce for it. Half of an avocado and sauteed salmon, sockeye salmon, and I cook it with eggs. I'm good for 5 hours with that.
Wow.
It gave me the protein. It gave me the fats. The fats are probably the most important part of this.
Yeah.
And it also gave me the green vegetables. And there's a whole lot of talk about that with glutathione and antioxidants. But that breakfast, which I have at least 3 times a week, and I'm a champion. And the other days I just don't do the salmon. I just have the eggs. And I'm really good
And
to
do
go.
you
I don't
still get the same effect?
Salmon seems to work like the real champion here.
Okay.
I've tried other meat. It doesn't quite work as well as salmon. I've tried other fish. It doesn't quite work as well.
Yeah.
But if I have salmon every day, I'll get tired of it.
Yeah. And I'm assuming it's not a farm-raised salmon. Is that correct?
It's wild-caught sockeye salmon.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I'm not doing the pink
I don't
stuff.
eat farm-raised stuff. I don't.
Oh, I don't either.
I won't touch that.
You take a look at the research on that. It says farmed, and it's assumed it's Scandinavian.
Mm-hmm.
It's typically Peru or Bolivia, not Bolivia. I think it's Peru or Chile. That has these filth ponds, and the salmon farm raised in Scandinavia is just as bad. I mean, I've seen some exposing reports on these things, and that's the fish flesh is gray. They have to stain it orange so it resembles salmon. But the nutrition in it, the fat in it is not any good. It's toxic, and
interesting. Yeah.
And it's not that much cheaper.
Yeah. So I wanna get your take on something pertaining to the brain aspects of what you mentioned. And this one has to do with, in addition to the role of food, nutrition, that is, the protein, the fats, and so forth. What kind of a role can we say about, for example, amino acids?
As you know, for 23 years, I was really a brain chemistry specialist. I dealt with several thousand people over that time. And what we're able, this part of your brain behind your forehead is called the prefrontal cortex. This is awareness. This is where you focus from. I'm stating this simply because it's a lot more complicated than this. But if this part isn't working, you have this kind of phenomena. I wonder what's going on. I don't see the way other people see, because it blinks on and off. And so that's why people have to read things 3 times. And that's why people, when they're in a conversation, cannot get the instructions correct, because they can't hear them. They get 3 of the 6 instructions, but the other 3 are just as important if you're going to perform.
Okay.
And what I found is that when I regulated through targeted naturally occurring proteins from beans and seeds from France, that I could regulate the amount of serotonin, dopamine, and glutathione in the brain, and actually in the entire body, and people stopped blinking. Metaphorically, they could now focus dramatically better, and their mood improved, their sleep improved, their overall function was dramatically better, and their digestion was better. And that's from regulating the serotonin. We did it with simply by taking capsules of 5-HTP and tyrosine and other things.
Yeah. Speaking of capsules, before I forget here, because I have a comment here from Phil, or question rather, I'm going to put it on the screen. What about fish oil capsule? We've heard about the omega-3 in capsules. Are those effective?
It depends. And here's the rule. And we actually tested this. The fish oil that comes in those gel caps has to taste fresh. So we bought a big bottle of this fish oil. I mean, it was big. Paid $9 for it. And I said, this got to be junk. And then I bought something from Nordic Naturals and in a gel cap. And then I cut them each open and tasted them. The one from Nordic Naturals, which is the main producer of cod liver oil and other oils, they produce them and they distribute them to other companies who sell them then. Tasted fresh, and I liked the flavor. I opened up the gel cap of the big bottle. It smelled bad. I tasted it, and you could tell it was rancid. So it's a simple test. If it's a big bottle, chances are it's going to be junk.
So it's not a good quality.
Testing it, I mean, you're responsible for getting a fresh product. So that means you have to experiment and open it up. So yeah, I completely agree. If you take a look at what percentage of the brain is actually fat, it's like 75% fat. And it's all in the protective line, the protective insulation of each of the neurons.
Interesting.
It's called the myelin sheath because it's an electrical system, and so it needs electrical insulation. Yeah. So the higher the quality of fats that you take in, the better the neurons function because they're better insulated.
I researched, read up a little bit on a few things to really have an understanding of this, because this is obviously out of my realm because that's not my area. But I'm very grateful to you for being here to really break this stuff down for all of us here. So, and I read something about the role of the lack of enough of hydrochloric acid in the gut. What is the link there, and why is that important?
Here's what this is. And I'm going to give you some things that are going to sound unbelievable, but it's been verified for 50 years, so it's pretty believable to me now. The acidity in your stomach is truly would dissolve a nail. It's that acid. Wow. And so you have hydrochloric acid, real high level, a real acid, and you have something called betaine, which is an enzyme, very powerful enzyme for breaking things down. And so in your stomach, the food is now, and this is fun to do. I took some things and I got some hydrochloric acid and some enzymes, and I put food in them. I washed them in a dish. It was astonishing to see the food dissolve right in front of me. So here's what happens. Let's say you're going to have some fresh salmon. Now you're going to chew it, and you're going to get saliva, which really starts the digestion process. And here's the remarkable thing. Saliva starts to mark out in the food where it's going. Going, what? What systems of the body are going to be affected? Sounds unbelievable to me, but we verified it. And then it goes into the stomach where the betaine and the hydrochloric acid now break it down into small enough units that the gut flora and your small intestines can now eat it, digest it, and the byproducts are what goes into your blood system and my blood system. So it's a wonderful system, but it has to start with a sufficient amount of hydrochloric acid. And it's at age 20, you've got the maximum amount. And at age 80, you've got about 20% of what you had when you were 20, which means the number one cause of death in the world is you starve to death no matter what your diet is, because you didn't have the digestive juices to break it down into something useful. So it runs through your system and you eliminate it without having extracted the nutrition to support your life. And so there are a couple of products out there that have betaine and hydrochloric acid in. One is from a company called Standard Process, and the product is called Zypan. Now, there are other companies that do this, but Zypan's the one I'm familiar with. And you can adjust it to fit your unique system. And you see people snap back going, you can tell they're starting to get nutrition again. Now you say, well, what percentage of the people who are over 40 should be taking this stuff? 100%. Now, who's going to tell you that? Not very many people even know it. They're certainly not going to recommend it. This is the one I recommend to everybody, though. Take Zypan or some other betaine hydrochloric acid supplement with your meals and have it digest your meal for you. Give yourself a chance to live beyond starvation.
Yeah. Interesting. Is there any other, like, for example, when they say, and based on what I read again, this is all about what I read. It's not that I'm very, very familiar with this. It just triggered my curiosity into understanding, because I went through some digestive problems a few years ago, way back, and I had to, believe it or not, drink Crystal. You know how nasty that is? And
What
the
is
reason I had to drink Crystal, because I had to
Crisco?
yeah.
Oh my God.
It made me drink that, but because I had to take some images to find out exactly why I was having a lot of heartburns. So till I start taking this, what you just mentioned, believe it or not, I was starting to take this, never had an issue ever. So I learned over the years, there are certain things you look for, especially when it comes down to digestion.
Yeah.
And one of them was about the fatty acids. Why those are essential in addition to some type of enzymes? Why is this important?
Oh God. Let me back up one step and then let's address that.
Sure.
How many people in this, how big is the over-the-counter medication for heartburn and digestive problems?
Oh, a lot. I've seen them when I go Walmart or Target or whatever. The shelves are so full.
The last thing I heard, it was $80 billion a year.
Ooh.
Go, whoa. I mean, for depression, it's only 50 billion, but it tells you how rampant this is. And so what they do is they give you an antacid. Now, you have heartburn because your stomach is already too low in hydrochloric acid and betaine. And there's a valve, it's called the ileocecal valve, at the very bottom of your stomach, that when the acid level gets high enough, it opens up, and the food that's in your stomach starts going into your small intestines. Now, if your stomach acid is not high enough, that valve doesn't work very well. It doesn't open correctly. And your stomach is a big muscle that keeps churning and churning and churning and mixing the food with the supposed hydrochloric acid and betaine. And if the valve at the bottom doesn't open, the food is forced up into the esophagus area. And it feels like you're having a heart attack. It really does hurt. So the remedy that these manufacturers have said is, well, let's just get rid of all the acid. Oh, that's the wrong thing to do. So you did the right thing, David. You did the hydrochloric acid betaine routine, and now that valve at the bottom of the stomach opens wonderfully because the acid is high enough and the food goes down into your intestines.
I mean, literally, I don't have any issue of digestive problem for the last few years now. Literally.
It's perfect. I have zero. Of course, I've been on Zypan and a couple of other things for a long, long time because I know the amount of hydrochloric acid and betaine I have is less than 10% of what I had when I was 20. I don't get to live forever, but one of the things I for sure don't want to die of is starvation. I mean, the quality of food that I eat, I'd actually like to digest it and have my body use it. What a concept.
Interesting. There are two other elements that I, based on what I read again, one of them called Candida yeast, whatever that is. And the other one, it says about lactose intolerance. What is the connection there?
Well, let's define what each one of these things is. Candida is almost invariably a direct result of too much bread, too much pasta, too much sugar, too much short-chain carbohydrates. And this Candida, which lives in your intestines, is now gonna run wild because we've fed it its favorite food. And it's gonna start, and it's in competition with lots of other things that are good for you. They get hurt, and the Candida now is running rampant. It's just going to show in your fingernails. It's going to show in your skin. It's going to show in a lot of different places because it's now overrun your body. The solution: cut sugar, stop eating bagels. As a matter of fact, and I know you've already done this, cut all bread. Bread is not your friend in any way. And all the short-chain carbohydrates, you hardly need any of those things. The question is there any value at all to them? We can't find any. And you look at Americans and you can't say, well, they certainly don't get enough calories. The most overweight country in the planet.
Yeah, we have obesity beyond imaginations for. I did notice one thing that I've been doing that really helped a lot. It was fasting. I cut down the amount of meals, and I felt sort of different. So, is fasting plays a role into impacting this process here?
You know, if you go to people like Dr. Eric Bergen and others, Marcola and so on, they give you great ways to do intermittent fasting. And I think you and I both incorporated this in terms of 2 meals a day, spaced about 6-7 hours apart, and that's all the food we can take in. Now, the benefits of that are, especially if you're eating quality food, it helps manage weight. It helps manage metabolism. It helps manage blood sugar levels. It helps manage blood pressure. It also inspires new stem cell production, which is stem cells are the longevity factor here. If your body is producing these blanks called stem cells that go in and renew every organ system in your body, the more of those you get, the longer you're going to live, and the healthier you're going to be in the meantime. Also, by managing the calories like that, especially with low carbohydrates, the incidence of cancer was reduced. And we know that that runs rampant. Also, plaquing in the arteries, heart disease, dramatically reduced on this fasting program. So is it good for you? Oh, you can count on that one, for sure.
Well, actually, I just found out this afternoon, believe it or not, that the pharmaceutical industry now coming up with the injection for the people with diabetes. So they're causing the problem, and at the same time trying to figure out, okay, let's come up with the make people sick, but we'll give them the vaccine to help them out or whatever. So, which I found very, very weird. And
I find it. I've been at this for so long. As you know, I'm certified in clinical nutrition, and I have a PhD in psychology. So I had to combine these for people to be at least normal, if not high performing. And I've seen so much of this that it's more or less a joke anymore. Of course they're going to do that. And you say, well, follow the money. Well, how do pharmaceuticals make money? They're not by giving people good health. I saw one, and I don't know why the guy even said this, but one executive with a major pharmaceutical company said, our goal is to have every human being in America on 3 prescription medications. And going, they're all practically all of them are needless if you have this radical responsibility of, I'm going to manage my own life. I'm going to feel powerful in terms of get the information and do it for myself. And I think there's a whole lot of practitioners out there that are happy to give you the information. You might have to pay them for it, but then you own it.
Yeah.
Or they get you going in the right direction.
Which is the right thing to do. I want to go back to a comment here by Johannes Christian. He put down, when we talked about obesity, he said or wrote, obesity is also a problem in Asia, I guess.
It is now.
Yeah. I noticed that when I traveled to Morocco recently. What I noticed that the obesity start to be, people are getting sick. And I asked, and they said, yeah, we start having McDonald's, people eating this kind of food, this seeing the impact. So it's the same in Asia. You see KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken. I used to see them in the Middle East. And I was like, what are fast food doing here? So, and you, so it's just to answer back Johannes Christian, you got a point there, because Asians are noticing that. Why? You never hear about Asian eating snack food, whatever. They always have natural stuff. At least the people that I know from that part of the world.
At least they used to.
Yeah.
Here's the trickery of this. You know, because I've been in so many companies and done so many pre-employment evaluations for people, I got to meet people in the food industry and very popular restaurant chain. And they said, yeah, well, you know, I've worked for this chain and that chain. And here's the point. We get the cheapest possible ingredients we can. We doctor them up with chemicals, and starting with numbing your taste buds so you don't notice how bitter the cheap meat is. And then we design all of this to perfectly fit the crunch, the munch, the salt, the oil, the taste. It is absolutely addictive. Then we wonder why people just love this stuff. I don't wonder. I mean, I can't imagine anything better to eat than a potato chip. And I might have one again someday. But they're poisoned. Rancid oil, short-chain carbohydrates, loaded with fats, carbohydrates, and salt. And it's the wrong kind of salt.
Is that why the sodium level goes up, I guess?
Well, there's some real trickery with the sodium level.
Yeah.
Because one of the things to say about sodium is that it makes you fat. Well, the truth is, high salt content in your food makes you retain water. It doesn't make you fat, but you are, because it isn't fat. It's water. And so when people go on a diet and they go on low salt, they drop weight right away. But it's not because the salt was really hurting them. It wasn't causing all these problems. It was the weight that they put on because the water weight.
Interesting.
So, you know, like there's Himalayan salt and there's sea salt from France and other places. It's pretty darn good salt.
I've been using the Himalayan salt, so for quite a while now. So.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Now, what about if we are to think about, not step away from the food aspects, the nutrition impact on this? Can we think about environmental issues, for example? Are there any concern with the environmental settings where we are?
Let me give you a piece of, I can't call it research, but it was putting facts together. Previously, my specialty was Parkinson's disease. And I could regulate, I carefully selected people, but I could regulate about 75 to 95% of the symptoms, had them gone.
Wow. Without medication?
With no medication. They could not be on any medication to do this.
Oh my God.
I did it all with targeted proteins. And if people are interested, I'll give them a web address and I'll give them a phone number that they can find a practitioner, because I don't do that anymore. Here's what I did. I came across a map of world density of pollution. So I put the map down, and then I got a map of the incidence of Parkinson's disease. Pollution, And they said, we don't know what causes Parkinson's disease. You're going, you're not looking at the right place. So what can you say when the maps coincided just like that?
Oh my God.
And coupled with the one simple fact, there's a substance in your body called glutathione that eliminates toxins from your body. Extraordinarily powerful, and you absolutely have to have it, or cancer is your next stop. So do an autopsy on the brain of a dead person, hopefully. And what they found is that the brain is loaded with glutathione because it has to be protected because it's so fragile. Except one part, the substantia nigra, which is the part of the brain that controls Parkinson's disease. And so this heavy pollution would go to the vulnerable area of the brain, damage it, and now people are, and they can't control it because they got brain damage. Now, fortunately, we're able to come up with ways to regulate in a balanced way the level of dopamine, which is the primary neurotransmitter that controls movement, and we were able to pump that part of the brain full of glutathione to protect it. Going, you know, you take a look at somebody who is here all over their body, and the only symptom they have left is here. And we did it hundreds of times.
And is that also because they are under so many medication?
Well, they had to go off all the medications because this protein program was incompatible to do medications with it.
With medication, yeah.
This is all supplements.
Wow.
Now it was medically developed by a guy in Minnesota named Dr. Marty Hintz. Did a fabulous job. The research is astonishing, and the results were stunning.
Wow.
So these things are out there. So is there a correlation between pollution? Well, yeah. Well, how many kinds of pollution are there now? We certainly have chemical pollution. A lot. Matter of fact, you can't even get a drink of water without 20, 30, 40 chemicals in it that you never heard of. They're scary when you find out what they are. And it's real hard to get them out. Yeah. I mean, we all do heavily filtered water.
Yeah.
Which is better than tap water, but we know we didn't get everything out.
Yeah. How about radiation? Does radiation play a role into all this?
When cell phones first came out, they were big and they were clumsy. And the number one developer died of brain cancer. And the invitation is, get that thing away from your ears. Get that thing away from your head. Don't sit close to the microwave, because no matter what they tell you, microwaves are going to come out of that thing. So, and you're bombarded with Wi-Fi, and you say, well, I turn mine off. Well, yeah, but every one of your neighbors has it on. And these things do profoundly affect your brain. There's no question about it. The research is there. We know it does it. But there's even your electrical wiring. I mean, you know, you take a look at the research of this and you say, wouldn't we be better to live by candlelight? Well, that's a pretty diminished life. So I don't want to do that. I'm willing to put up with the risks because I'm doing so many other good things to be healthy and energetic and live my life in my terms.
Oh, indeed. Well, that's very, very important to understand. This is why, guys, I wanted to just mention again, the whole purpose of this channel is really because we're starting, of course, with, as I said, I started with spices and fruit, then vegetables. They're going to move into meats and fats and all that. But the big objective to all this is to understand the big picture, which was Dr. Stewart was talking about, as far as what is the role of our brain, the brain chemistry, that plays a major role into really guiding you if you are to strive for a healthy lifestyle. Of course, you have to put in the time and effort into this. That ain't gonna happen on its own. Like
You
everything
know,
else in life,
one of the
nothing
things
happens on its own.
I completely agree with that. It's not going to happen on its own. And chances are it's not going to happen unless you get around other people who are aimed the same direction and doing similar kinds of things.
Indeed.
How easy is it to, everyone's going out for a burger and, well, I want to go hang out with everybody. Or they're going to a bar and they're going to drink for a while. Okay, well, you've not only hurt your liver, you've hurt your brain, and you've now poisoned your system with the alcohol, and you've hurt your ability to focus. What do you think alcohol does to your brain? What do you think it does to your liver? In your liver, it creates a substance, to deal with the alcohol, it creates a substance similar to formaldehyde. Formaldehyde is what they embalm bodies with to preserve them, and they bury them, they load them up with formaldehyde. Going, hold it, my liver is producing something like that because I'm drinking alcohol? Yes, it is. This stuff is highly toxic, and over time, we know cirrhosis, it kills your liver, but it's also damaging other parts of your body, including your digestion. And we might even talk just a bit about the microorganisms in your small intestines, because they are going to profoundly affect your focus, because they really are what digests your food. You pour alcohol in them and it kills them. I mean, you see there's somebody got a cut and they didn't have medication, so they poured vodka on it to sterilize it. Yeah, well, drink that stuff and it sterilizes you too from the inside.
Wow, that's the reality. So,
well, you and I share a similar view of alcohol. We don't do it really at all.
No, I don't touch alcohol. I never will. I never did, and I'm okay. I can go through my life without having alcohol. So,
matter of fact, your life will probably be better and longer.
Yeah. Well, I made that decision when I was in my literally 16 years old or so.
Really?
Yeah, I made it that early. That's I made a decision not to touch alcohol, and I never did. So, and I'm okay with it.
I made the decision after I read the research.
Yeah. I didn't do any research back then.
Right.
Actually, it was a story to why, and the reason why, and I'm going to share it here quickly here. It was a guy that I used to know was a homeless at that time when I was, 17, 18. And I used to hang out with him, believe it or not. He was a homeless, dressed weird. My dad never saw me standing with the guy because my dad would have never approved. But here is what was about that guy. When that guy will speak French, I will need a dictionary to understand what he's saying. That's how bright he was. Yeah. Well, you know what happened to him? He was a pilot. They found alcohol in his blood system. They fired him and he couldn't take it. And he became alcoholic. That was the reason why I made that decision at that stage to never touch alcohol, because I learned and I saw what happened to that guy. So just from alcohol. So that was a great decision. You all know why. I never shared that story with anybody, but I don't.
Well, now a couple thousand people are going to know your personal story.
It's nice to share the reality of it. So
10% of primates, that's us, chimpanzees, monkeys, gorillas, and so on. 10% of us have a particular gene structure that once we taste alcohol, we crave it. And practically all alcoholics have that genetic structure. And you say, what do you do about it?
Yeah.
Because this very often leads to a tragic end.
Yeah. I was always scared of the first sip. That was my fear. And I always used to say, all it's going to take is the first sip. I'd rather make a decision. Do I have that first sip or not at all? I stood with the latter. So, and I'm content with that decision. So
You
well,
can celebrate it.
before we let you go, Dr. Stewart, if you will be pleased just to recap the treatments for what we talked about briefly, some key for our viewers once again.
Also, I'd like to give them a website of a close friend of mine who
Yeah.
who is truly masterful in this field and has worked what appears on the surface to be miracles with adults in terms of overcoming these kinds of issues. Her name is Jane Shook, and I'd like to, here is the web address: C as in cat, T as in Tom, S as in Sam, Dallas, DALLAS.com.
Okay, let's repeat that one again.
C is in cat, T is in Tom, S is in silver, Dallas, all small letters, DALLAS.com. Look at what she's got to offer. And for people who watch this show, she will do a free consultation with them about their situation.
Wow. Wow. I posted for our viewers there. And I'm going to I'll get you guys the link again. I'm going to go and pull it out of her website. And yes, I will do that, Matt. I will, okay, let me do it right here. Hold on a second, because I can do this one on, I can do it on, in a banner. So, what was her name? Jane?
Jane Shook, H-O-O-K.
C-H-O-O-K.
No, S-H-O-O-K. Shook.
S-H-O-O-K. Got it. And the website is
CTSDallas.com.
CTS Dallas.
All small character.
Yeah, .com.
Free consultation with a master in the field. I've known Jane for 25 years and have been so impressed with the quality of her work.
So
I'll tell you a personal story if we had the time, but I'd rather go over and recap the things to do to help you focus better.
And I'm going to leave this for our viewers to see.
The first is, if you've got up and down, right and left issues, research creeping and crawling, and you can find it easily, or contact Jane Shook and she'll tell you where to go for it. But that problem is solvable. That's the hope of all of this. It's all solvable. If you're having a donut for breakfast, have bacon and eggs, or meat and fish, whatever, and vegetables, have that instead. You'll feel better the first day. I also recommend half an avocado with it. Also, these are many people really benefit from an amino acid program, targeted proteins to overcome brain issues. And if people will contact us, we'll give them a way to contact someone who knows the practitioners all over the world, because there are lots of practitioners using this stuff now. Another one is, if you're in a toxic environment that's physically toxic, the air, the water, guess what? You're gonna have a problem. And the question is, how fast can you get out of there? You're not going to solve an environmental issue. You're just going to have to escape it. Or you're going to get brain damage. There's no two ways about it. The next thing is get quality sleep. We didn't even talk about that. But you need 8.5 to 9 hours of sleep every night. You say, well, that's for kids. It's for everybody. The research is so clear. Another is intermittent fasting. We didn't talk about this, but people need to get out and exercise. And they need to see the sunshine.
That's important. That's very important.
You know, the thing about 20 minutes in the sunshine every day is really not enough. But most of us are not going to take the full hour to be out in the bright sunlight. But whatever we can do, we're better off.
Oh, great.
When we're doing research on vision, we found that people who dealt with the sun, spent some time, could see better. They're going, what? I never understood it, but I don't need to understand something to see that it works. And lots of other people saw the same thing. And maybe the last thing here is, no, there's two last things. One is get harmony going in your family. No matter what you want to argue about, you're not going to win an argument. And the invitation is for families, husbands and wives, to be dedicated to figuring out how to get along with each other. Because it makes such a difference in terms of how much you enjoy your life and actually how productive you are. You can't be, it's this thing about distraction.
No.
I go home, I'm going to fight with whoever. I'm going, no, I'm not. I'm dedicated to finding a way to live harmoniously in this situation. And I'd say the last one is accept radical responsibility for your own life. You get the consequence of everything that happens in your life, whether you caused it or not. The chances are you either inadvertently caused it or directly caused it. Inadvertently means I wasn't paying attention and ran into a pole. I wasn't paying attention in traffic and I could have avoided this wreck, but I wasn't paying close enough attention. Well, that's you taking responsibility for. And it's the only power position to be in, because that's the part you can have some influence or control over. Blaming anybody else is a waste of time, and it defocuses you from, if I'm really responsible for my life, I better focus better. It changes your motivation. And join a group of other people who are aimed the same direction.
Indeed, indeed. And just a last reminder for our viewers, the website you're looking at is for Jane Show. If you want a free consultation, check her out and just let her know that Dr. Stewart referred you there. So, and how many consultations they will get, Rod?
One free.
One free consultation. Okay.
But what you're getting with the Master of the Universe, I mean, she is that good.
Wow.
She'll talk to you and she'll know, she'll really understand. She'll tell you more about you than you know yourself. A lot more.
That's very interesting. Well, Dr. Stewart, we can't thank you enough again for really sharing your knowledge and the experience you gained over 40 years plus, and we're so grateful. And I am sure our viewers rather appreciate you for dedicating this time for us to share your knowledge. We look forward to seeing you next time. No, you take care.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. No. All right, everybody. I hope you guys enjoyed this wealth of information from Dr. Stewart. Really, I'm very, very thankful to him for carving out time to spend with us here, because it's a wealth of information. The big pharma industry ain't gonna share this. They don't even want you to know. You look just what happened with our society, at least for us here in the US, pushing people more to get sicker and sicker through the food they eat, through the whatever the system the government is doing. So, but it becomes upon us to take responsibility for our own choices, especially when it comes down to health. So I hope you guys find this very informative, and I look forward to seeing you next Monday. As always, remember, your health is your best asset. Till next time. Bye-bye.